Now is the time. A time you'll look back on. A time you adopt as inspiration. You will recollect this time. This moment, right now. Motivate yourself towards success. Overcome. Take over. The time is now.
Good evening. How are you, lads? You all right?
Good. You know, this must be the strangest startup I've loaded in a long time, because normally it's just Daz and Pete, and tonight we've got like the Three Stooges. It's like we're never normally on together. We've always got something going on, and tonight we've been left in control. So Richie has the helm. Me and Chris are on comments. So yeah, if it goes wrong, then we're totally to blame because we don't really know what we're doing. But yeah, good. And we know, obviously, we just come on air, but we were talking before. We now know what day the Southampton game is. So now all of us loaded lads are in a position where we can sort our flights and our hotels and everything else. And we will see, hopefully, those who watch us on a regular basis, we'll see you in Newcastle on Saturday the 29th and 30th, because we will all be there. Flights and hotels are being booked. The loaded gang will be in the tune for the weekend. So hopefully catch us laying in the gutter somewhere. Well, certainly me and Chris on the Saturday night, somewhere before the game. But yeah, excited it'll be. And Richie, you made a point there. I know we're going to bring Aaron and that on shortly. But you made a point. The five of us have never ever been in a room together.
Nope.
I haven't met Chris, Pete, or Daz, despite Daz living only 2 hours away from me. Have been in a room with Richie last year, and but yeah, I'm really looking forward to meeting the rest of the boys and having a few beers and hopefully 3 points against Southampton. So yeah, all good, lads. All good.
2 years in the making, Marty, innit?
I know, Jesus Christ. Yeah, between COVID, parents, and other things that have delayed all of my treks. Yeah, but it'll be nice. You know what? For me, it'll be nice to catch everybody, but it'll be nice to come home for a much better reason, because obviously the last time I was home was for my mum's funeral. So I'm looking forward to coming home and getting to St James's, having a few beers, and having a really good weekend with you lads. Can't wait.
Yeah, that's definitely the whole point of it, mate.
That's it.
So let's get started. And it's good to see so many familiar faces in the chat. We've got Lisa, our regular spanner in the works there. Mark's in there as well. Steph, Mad Creatley, Les is in there. Johnny 2 for life. Thank you very much for joining us again on this Tuesday night. So obviously, with it being a big week in Newcastle's, recent history of this consortium, it's a really, really big week. We haven't had a week this big, what this century really, have we? So what we're going to do is we've got to have lots of content for you. Obviously, we had Johnny Greenwood on last night from Newcastle Fans TV. And tonight we've got two guests joining us from Chronicle Live and Everything's Black and White podcast, Aaron Stokes and Andrew Musgrove. He's running a little bit late, but luckily to make his debut tonight, Aaron is with us already in the green room. So I'll bring Aaron at the show now. Even Aaron, how are you, mate?
Yeah, very good, lads. Thanks for having us on.
No, you're much appreciated. Thank you very much for agreeing. So I actually got to meet Aaron a few weeks ago. I went along to their live show at the Irish Centre, which I got to meet Andrew in person. Obviously, I've shared a screen with Andrew, got chatting with him, obviously introduced to Aaron, and both agreed to come on this week because we knew it was going to be a big week. We wanted to put loads of content out there and have different views on, obviously, what's happened recently, what's happening now, and what's possibly going to happen going forward as well. So, Aaron, how are you to start with? Are you all right, mate?
Yeah, very good. I feel like we're all just in this unprecedented situation of trying to, keep the nerves in check of Newcastle United in the final. Obviously first time since the turn of the century we've ever sort of had a feeling like this. So yeah, look, just absolutely buzzing for the weekend and just sort of counting down the days already.
Yeah, well, to be fair, I think obviously we have Jordan Cronin on here on a regular basis as well. We have Don Scare on as well, quite a lot as well. We've had Liam Kennedy on the show as well. Various different local journalists. Obviously Keith Downey, Pete Graves has been on the show several times as well. And it's always good to get a different feedback of what they've thought of the current consortium. So obviously, because you went to that dire stage under the previous owner where press and media room was a bit naff, forlorn. It was a horrible experience, even with the managers that was going on, the relationships, there was, arguing between reporters and the manager, and certain comments that stay with the manager going forward for the rest of the time at the club. Did someone say bacon? Something rings a bell sometime and all that sort of stuff. But obviously now that everything's changed now under the consortium, obviously Eddie Howe, and I remember you talked about that briefly on the live show, but how have you made of it since obviously the new consortium's come in for you personally? How have you felt it, when you're in the press conferences on a day-to-day basis or week-to-week basis, however much it's like?
Yeah, look, we've got a really good relationship with the club at the Chronicle, and that hasn't always been the case. I know under Mike Ashley there was certain periods of time where the publication was banned from matches, banned from press conferences. Trying to get any sort of information out of Mike Ashley was very, very hard. Whereas now it's just completely changed. This ownership want a dialogue with the fans. They want a dialogue with us journalists and the press. Very, very impressed with the club that they've given us, access to, Staveley and Murdad and Dan Ashworth and Darren Eales. And actually, I thought it was, a very, very good touch from the club. And I'm not sure how many fans know this, but every time there's a new appointment now, sort of in the boardroom, they are sort of introduced to the media room before games. So, Darren Eales was brought down, had sort of a 5-10 minute sort of casual chat with all the journalists before a game last season. The same happened with Ashworth. The same sort of happens with all the new appointments, which is just really good because, nobody wants to be in that position again where the local media is banned because they've written something the club doesn't like. And, it is our job to, call it how we see it, and we can't be in the club's pocket. So it's just good that, the media have got a good relationship now with the club again.
Yeah. I think one of the things that I picked up on the night when I saw you live was the fact that obviously Luke Edwards is also a guest on that show as well. And he did mention that the amount of negative press that comes out when things don't go well, but he also mentioned that you don't see much come out now. But at the end of the day, they still find out things that happen with the club and stuff that, technically they could put out into the media if they wanted to. But because they've got so much respect for the club full stop going forward now, and obviously the relationship you've got, you don't want to risk that sort of thing. Did you back up what Luke actually said there, that you could rewrite something and do that, but you don't want to? Or do you find that you prefer the way you're going now and would just write the truth anyway? What would you do, Aaron?
I think Luke made a very good point on that live event, and obviously for those who weren't there, Luke sort of said that there's still the same goings on the training pitch under Eddie Howe as there was with Steve Bruce. There's still little training bust-ups, but it just doesn't get reported now because the mood around the club is so much better. And it happened at Newcastle United under Steve Bruce. You saw the amount of leaks. It happened at Manchester United, before Eric Ten Hag came in, and all of a sudden the club gets on a good run, and all of a sudden you don't hear about any of the negatives. Now, that's not to say that we won't ever report on them. As I say, we don't want to be in the club's pocket. We do need to be, fair and objective. But at the same time, when the morale's so high, they're doing so well in the league, you sort of don't want to be the one to actually, bring the mood down at all. So it's about trying to find a balance. But what I will say is that the club in general is just a much happier place now. The work they've done behind the scenes to the training ground is absolutely magnificent. It must be so good if you've been a player sort of from the old era to see the changes that they're finally making. I mean, I remember going to Leicester City's training ground about 5-6 years ago when I worked for the national papers, and it was just another world. They'd spent about 300-400 million on their training facilities and their hotel alone. So Newcastle, did have to play catch up. I think, the contractors that went in to do this new training ground, wrote in their report that it was probably a League One standard training ground before they did the work on it. So plenty of good things happening behind the scenes, and I think, as the media, we're just trying to, cover that in the best way possible.
And I'm just checking the green room. I can see your partner in crime from the Chronicle Live and Everything Black and White podcast, Andrew Musgrove, has finally joined us. I know he's running late, so I'll add Andrew to the show. Evening, Andrew. Welcome back to the channel. How are you, mate? You all right?
I'm good. How was the warm-up done?
He's done all right. His debut's going all right so far. So he's just been giving us a bit of an insight of how things are. Because obviously, I was explaining that. Obviously, I saw you at the live event a few weeks ago. We got talking and stuff. We were just basically going to see how things had changed for you as journalists with the club under the new regime, and obviously how things don't get reported as much now anymore. And obviously, Aaron's just backing up what I'd found out with the event. So we're just about to move on now to what your thoughts. Obviously, that's what your thoughts are on the club off the pitch. How have you felt this season's gone so far, Andrew? I'll start with you. And how have you felt Newcastle have gone so far this season, going into such a big week this week?
Way above anyone's realistic expectations, I think. Anyone that listens to our podcast will know that I was talking about 11th or 10th place finish as a sign of progress. Well, they've maybe heard that and blown that right out of the water, haven't they? To be battling for the top four, a cup final, you would have taken that 2-3 years down the line, let alone the first 12, 18 months. So it has been quicker than anyone ever expected. And I think it's maybe caught a few people off guard as well. I think you can see with the ticket situation for Wembley, I don't think anyone expected to have to deal with that so quickly and so early on in the project. And I think that's just kind of one sign of how maybe it's caught everyone off guard a little bit. It's certainly been a surprise to us, I think, to be heading down to a Wembley final this weekend to cover it is not what we expected to do at the start of the season. I mean, I might be wrong, Aaron, you can correct us, but I certainly didn't expect to be heading down.
No, I think even the most optimistic fans would have, loved a cup run, but I don't think anybody necessarily thought it was going to happen this soon. And Andrew makes the point, at the start of the season, if you take your mind back to August, so many people were saying, let's finish 10th, let's finish 9th, gradual, measured growth. And now all of a sudden, if they finish 9th this season, it would be a huge disappointment. So, yeah, the goalposts have moved, dramatically in the last 6 months.
Yeah, obviously, Andrew brings up a good point there, Marty, that obviously the interest from the season tickets for the Wembley tickets was going to be such a interesting from all aspects of Newcastle fans. I'll go around all of you because obviously I've heard various different thoughts of people that I spoke to at the match on Saturday, obviously on social media. But do you think the club distributed the tickets the best way they could, or do you think there could have been any improvements on the way they did it?
Do you know what? I think it's one of those, and maybe Andrew and Aaron will, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think whichever way you do it, I think there was going to be unhappy people just purely because of the demand. So I think whether the club had gone, right, it's all season ticket holders first, or it's a lottery, or, you got whatever, let's say it's even best parts of 40,000 season tickets. That still leaves 12,000 still clamoring for tickets. The allocation was 37,500. I think the biggest issue for me with ticket allocation is, and I get the reasoning behind it, there's commercial reasons and everything else, but I think I just don't get this whole thing of giving other clubs and other areas tickets for two teams that are going to a final. So I think if the capacity is whatever, let's just pluck a number, let's just say it's 100,000. Surely you could have done, 45 or 48,000 each and 4,000 worth of corporate or whatever else. But like there's tickets go out to from what I've heard, there's tickets go out to League One clubs, and there's certain allocations that go to commercial, there's certain that go to obviously sponsors, and I kind of get all of that. But I think, when you look at the two clubs, probably, if not two of the best supported clubs in the country, the allocation of 37,000 was never going to work. Never going to work. So I think, to be fair to the club, I think Andrew makes a really good point. I think, they probably didn't expect to have to do it at this point. And I think whichever way they did it, whether it's members getting hold of it, whether it was somebody else, and then you have touts and you have everything else, there was always going to be somebody that's going to have a bit of a whinge. But look, it is what it is. They'll learn lessons for next time. And I think, Aaron makes a good point. I don't think we expect it to be there. but we'll have certainly learned lessons as a club and how we allocate and how that's done for the next final that we make.
Yeah, Chris, what did you make of it? What do you think can be learnt from the experience so far?
Probably quite a lot, to be fair. I suppose it's hard for me to talk, not being a season ticket holder, and obviously I am going to Wembley on Saturday, and I knew that I wouldn't be in with a chance of a ticket, and I understand people who are frustrated that haven't got them. I understand, the elation, and I'm absolutely delighted for people who have them. By the way, it's been described, doesn't it, as like the Willy Wonka golden ticket, and I completely agree with that. And I've never really been a bitter person, so I'm pleased that people have got the tickets, and I'm pleased that for the people who are going. But I think as soon as I saw how they were going to be doing the tickets, I didn't agree with it straight away, because I feel like they were trying too hard. When I saw like the 7-tier process, and then somebody, I forget who it was, I've seen it on Twitter, and somebody was saying that they've been a season ticket holder for 30-40 years, never get the opportunity to go to away games, so they were highly unlikely in getting one. And I just thought, I don't know, it just didn't sit right with me. And I just thought, really, for me, the easiest and fairest process would have just been to go to season ticket holders, and then just kind of do it in the the most logical way. I think they were trying too hard to please everyone, and unfortunately it backfired. But I do have sympathy with the club, because there was always going to be someone upset. Do you know what I mean? You're never going to please everyone. There's not a big enough allocation. And hey, it's a great problem to have, isn't it? Because it shows that we're successful. It shows that people want to go and watch us, which maybe a couple of years ago, maybe it would have been very easy to get a ticket, because not many people wanted to go and watch us under Steve Bruce and others. So it's good that there is a clamour, because it shows that we're doing something right on the pitch. But I just feel like they made a mistake. But the interesting thing for me, and I'm going to leave it open-ended, because we could probably talk all night about this, but the interesting thing for me is how they're going to deal with it going forward, because the demand's only going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And let's be honest, this is a Carabao Cup final, which we're all absolutely delighted about and really excited for. But wait until the FA Cup finals come and the Champions League games come, then it's gonna, the demand's gonna be even bigger. So I'd love to see how the club deal with this. But yeah, I can't really criticize the club too much, because, as Andrew said, I don't think any of us or the club were expecting it to be this quick. And the fact that it has come this quick, is great for us, because it shows we're doing well. But for me, I think they've made a bit of a faux pas personally.
I think the other thing there, Lisa, sorry, Rich, I think Lisa makes a good point there. She's saying, she doesn't go to the away games, but bought all the home cup tickets and got pot 3. She thinks a lot of season ticket holders possibly didn't bother going to the early cup games and now massively regret it. So I think one of the things I spoke to quite a few people on this, where season ticket holders were saying that they were wanting to give people who couldn't afford to go to a match on a day, a week-to-week basis, because the prices were so reduced, to give them a chance to buy a ticket and go and experience the club under the new ownership and stuff like that. So I can understand that point. But I've spoken to a few other season ticket holders since that, and obviously they've now found out what the guidelines were. I think you'll find going forward from next season, and I don't know if Andrew and Aaron agree with us on this, but I think you might be getting full houses on home cup games going forward, because the clamour for this is going to be a similar sort of way to actually going forward, how they're going to issue tickets. You're probably going to have a full allocation every single time you're at home, because the season tickets holders aren't want to risk missing out a Wembley trip if you were to get there again. Then obviously the members are going to snap up anything that's left over in case they've got an allocation going forward. I think the only thing I think I would have done slightly different, while just obviously getting that point of view before we move on, Andrew and Aaron's point of view, is I think I would have made sure that you had like the season ticket holders or points, and then work your way down the season ticket holders who went to the cup game, like Lisa did. She went to the home games, and perhaps the ones that only went to so many cup games, and then season ticket holders who hadn't been to a cup game, and then go on as members who'd been to cup games and stuff like that, and put the season ticket holders a little bit first and show the light that whether they've been since the new concessions come in, or whether they've been there for years and years and years, whatever. Just to show a bit more loyalty to them first and give them the option before it goes to the members. As I know members, perhaps, like myself, I can't afford a season ticket. That's due to personal circumstance, being a full-time carer for my wife. And I'd love to have a season ticket, but I know my situation, and that's fine. But I get the games where I can.
But there's obviously, I think the people who get there every single week and fork out hundreds of pounds every year for a season ticket should at least get the option to get a ticket before elsewhere. I don't know what you think first, Andrew, and then we'll go an hour after.
From a personal point, I mean, first of all, I will say is that I didn't envy the person at the club who made the final decision. I mean, that's not an easy decision to make, and as you guys say, whatever they decided on was always going to leave a large group of supporters very unhappy because there just simply wasn't enough tickets to meet the demand. And maybe they will learn from this. Maybe the communication could be a little bit better, but I don't really see how much they can change. I know season ticket holders that were in the fourth or fifth period ballot weren't very happy because they felt their loyalty wasn't rewarded. But I would also put forward that a lot of the members actually go to every single game. It's just there wasn't a season ticket for them at the start of this season, but they at least attempt. I know I think my dad's only missed a couple of games, and that's because he's been on holiday or what have you. But had he been here, he would have gone for the tickets, and he's gone to every other game and the cup games. So, I think what we saw on Twitter from certain aspects of the social media group where it became a bit nasty, I think, in parts. And we've all got to remember that whether you're a season ticket holder, whether you remember, whether you go every now and then, or whether you just watch every game from your armchair, it doesn't make you any less of a supporter. Everyone's got their own reasons for, why they watch the club in the way they do. Like I say, a lot of people just would have been unlucky and not being able to get a season ticket, not about being able to afford it. There just weren't enough season tickets. So I didn't like that part of it, that fallout, because we had a lot of people kind of flying that I'm a better fan than you. And that's just not on. This should be a time when we all come together and support Newcastle United, regardless of where you are in the world, how you watch the games. At the end of the day, I think every fan just wants to see Newcastle United win.
Yeah, like I've a membership, like I live in Dublin, so I didn't even attempt to try and get a ticket because, in my view, I'm coming over. Me and the lads are going over for April. Myself and Daz are flying in. We're going to the Southampton game. So that, like, I'm happy with that. I just love to get to the games when and where I can, when I can afford, when I can, ditch the kids and get away from work. But I wouldn't have tried with on the member side of it, because I know that there are genuine people that turn up in that 50,000 every second week and go to the away games that probably do deserve it more. As much as I would love to go to Wembley, there are others that do deserve it more. So I would never have even attempted to try and get a ticket, even with a membership, because I think from my perspective, there are others that really should get that ticket that are turning up week on week. So, I'll watch it from the pub here, surrounded by hopefully Scousers backing us, as we take on Man U in a pub in somewhere in the middle of Dublin on Sunday afternoon. But I think it's right, Andrew, what you say. Everybody's got different reasons and different things, and it was never going to be great for everybody. But look, those that are there, have a brilliant day. Those that aren't, celebrate it in whichever way you can and get stuck in. Have a few beers, put the black and white shirt on, and let's go into it and get stuck in.
Aaron, so what did you make? Do you agree with any of the other lads' thoughts or what Aaron said?
Yeah, look, I think you've all hit the nail on the head. I don't want to echo too much of what you just said, because I think, what Marty said at the very start, it rings true. Whichever way they did it, there was going to be people missing out. There was going to be people unhappy. If you give it to season ticket holders only, you make it a closed shop, and people that, have their own reasons for not getting a ticket are penalised. Equally, season ticket holders who have had, a season ticket for 20 odd years are missing out. As Andrew said, I don't envy who made the decision. And I think one thing that I will just add, and I'm looking very, very far in the future here, but this is Newcastle United's first final in 20 years. It's all brand new. Everybody wants to be there. The excitement. If the club continue growing the way they are, they're going to be in cup finals every couple of years. It doesn't feel like it now, but that feeling will eventually wear off slightly, and you're not going to feel as devastated if you don't get a ticket. I think because it's so new and so, everybody wants to be at this final because it's the first one. That's why we've seen so many, fans upset about it. But yeah, there was never a right or wrong way to do it. I think the club, from people I've spoke to, they think they've been fair, but they also think that, they will learn from this, and as the years go on and the club continue to make finals, they'll sort of iron out those teething problems.
Just before we move on up this week, there's a question coming from John asking you regards to that, and I don't know if either you might be able to answer this or not. But he asks, hello, Tribs, any idea why there's a limit on membership? Surely the more the merrier. Any clue if anyone has any idea with regards to that?
I don't. I mean, I think it's just simply trying to make sure that people don't just buy memberships and always miss out might be the reason, because then, the club have taken their money. But if there's only, I don't know, say there's 40,000 members, but there's only ever 25,000, tickets available to members, and you've got to hold a certain amount back for general sale as well, then, you're essentially taking money knowing that at least half aren't going to ever get a ticket. So that might be reason, but I mean, that's just me off the top of my head. I've not, heard. I don't know what the numbers are, and I've not heard a reason for capping it, but that's just my view there.
I think the membership thing was slightly confusing. Sorry, Aaron, because I got mine. I think Daz got one last year as well. I got mine, and we got the card and the pen and everything else, and then it kind of went to a digital membership. And I think what confused fans was they ran out of digital memberships. So people were kind of saying, well, how can you run out of a digital membership? Okay, we're not getting a physical card and a wallet and everything else, but how can the club run out of digital memberships? Because that's just digital. So I think it probably could have done with a little bit of clarity that if there is so much held back, people would have understood. But I think it was just the fact that we didn't really get those comms, that people were kind of going, okay, what's kind of going on? Is there a limit? Isn't there a limit of what's happening? And it was never really clarified. So maybe something for the club to work on for next time round again. But it's all teething issues, I guess.
Sorry, Aaron, you were going to say?
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, no, just somebody made a very good point earlier about, going forward. I think they are going to see sold out home games in the cup, because people know now. I've seen a lot of people on social media since the final, tickets were released saying, well, next season I'm just going to buy a ticket for every cup game, even if I can't go, just to make sure I've got those points. So they do probably need to police it to make sure, people aren't just, buying the tickets for the sake of it and then not going.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. But today was probably the first time that Newcastle have really looking forward to the weekend. We had the press conference this morning. Were both of you there this morning?
No, so the Chronicle Live sent two there. We had Lee Ryder and Kieran Kelly there to speak to Eddie Howe and a couple of the players that the team put up as well. Yeah.
So obviously you'll have seen the press conference. What did you make of it going forward about what Eddie Howe had to say about who was injured? Obviously, players, how they're going to be involved and stuff like what. What did both of you make of that?
Eddie Howe, seeing his usual self, he seemed very relaxed. I don't think, looking at him, you would have known that he was a man about to, lead his team into their first cup final in 20 years. Very positive. Still, I think, feeling the effects of Nick Pope. I don't think he's, truly gotten over that yet, as we probably all haven't. But he seemed very relaxed, very calm. He told us that the players are going down on Saturday, which I thought was a bit surprising. I thought they would have probably headed down earlier, but it just seems that Howe wants to treat it as any other game, so they're going to head down early on Saturday morning.
Andrew, so you going to say something?
Yeah, just obviously the news about Joe Willock's probably one of the big pieces, isn't it? And first off, good to see that Joe Linton's probably set for Wembley, but I think Joe Willock's going to be the interesting one, because with Bruno back, then that probably left a question over how well would it be Alan St. Maximin that dropped out. Joe Willock would be playing a lot, and then Joe Linton would go on the left, but maybe it makes that decision a little bit easier. And even if Joe Willock is fit, are you bringing them back in and taking out St. Maximin? Because we all know Bruno, if fit, is going to be back in that starting 11, don't we? So then it is a question of what do you do? But given the way Alan St. Maximin played against Liverpool, I think he's probably played his way into the starting 11 on Sunday. I don't know what you guys thought, but I thought he was excellent against Liverpool, and he looks like he's finally stepping up and realising that maybe this is his potential final chance to really seize the opportunity in Newcastle.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, because we've discussed it over the last few days during the review show and the show last night with Johnny from Newcastle Fans TV about what we think the team might be going forward this week. Obviously, I think nobody really discusses the back four. That's usually set in stone, and normally we don't say who's going to be between the sticks either, because it's usually Nick Pope. But obviously, that's not the case this time round. We know obviously he's suspended. Martin Dubravka can't play because he's cup tied because he played for Man United. I don't know. What's your thoughts on him? Just before we move on to the rest, what was your thoughts on the Martin Dubravka loan and the fact that obviously, if the worst thing happens on Saturday and we lose, and Martin Dubravka gets a winner's medal?
Yeah, it was a little bit bizarre one. It seemed in his head that he wanted to make history. I think he said numerous times about him being, I think, the first countryman to play for Manchester United, or him at least joining Manchester United is a massive thing in his country. And I think it's just seemed to be kind of a personal thing that he wanted to achieve. Obviously, it didn't quite work out. He didn't really get the game time that he desired, or if he was promised. And it's just typical Newcastle that things have worked out the way they have. He comes off the bench, number one gets sent off. He actually has had a really good game, Dubravka. A good couple of saves, and just sod's law that he just can't play on Sunday. And then Galdalo's out on loan, isn't he? And it's down to Karius between the sticks. But if you ask Aaron about Karius, he's very optimistic, aren't you?
You know what it is? I just think, imagine if somebody's just woken up from a year-long coma and you've got to tell them that Newcastle United are in a cup final and Loris Karius is going to be their goalkeeper. I think that they'd be thinking they're still dreaming. But
I'll have another one of these.
Yeah. me and Andrew were discussing it on the Chronicle podcast this week, and I just think, and this is me being completely optimistic, but I just think it is written in the stars that he has an absolute blinder, saves 3 penalties, his Champions League nightmares finally behind him after 5 years, and he gets the game he deserves. And like I say, that is me being very optimistic. But I think personally, it's going to be a huge game for him because he's waited years for this chance to redeem himself, and hopefully he's in the right sort of frame of mind to do just that.
It's funny you mentioned Aaron, because when I did the review show with Pete on Sunday night, on Saturday night, it was I actually said the same thing about Karius. What's to say, we get behind him and, he might have an absolute blinder. He might make 2 or 3 world-class saves that lead us good on to win the cup, and then he can put that Champions League nightmare behind him. And I think one of the things that people forget about that Champions League camp on the night, he was suffering from a concussion as well during that actual game. Obviously, as we know how the concussion thing goes now, we're a bit more aware of how it is and stuff. Should he have been on the pitch in the first place? To make those mistakes and stuff like that. So obviously it's good to see that things have gone and developed on that front, but obviously it wasn't in time for him for that game, unfortunately. But I was just going through all the pictures before. I don't know if this was mentioned in the show last night, but I saw a really interesting stat that I think Daz has uploaded regards to Karius. If I can find what it is. Regards to that Champions League campaign. And I don't know if you've seen this, but during this 2017-2018 Champions League campaign, Loris Karius actually had the most clean sheets in the campaign. So
I was just looking that up there because we mentioned this in the office today. So I was just trying to look that up, and you've stolen me point. But yeah, that is exactly why we should be a little bit more optimistic, because he seems to be defined by this one game, but in reality, he obviously had a good campaign when you look back at it, and people are just remembering this clangor of a final when, like you said, there was also the fact that he was concussed. And in one game shouldn't define a person. But it's weird because people make mistakes. Nick Pope's sending off is a massive mistake. It's a massive clangor, but that's not going to define his career. So why is that 1 or 2 mistakes in the final defining Karius' career? It's really unfair.
Yeah, I think Jordy makes a good point there. Just put the comment up there. He says, one game shouldn't define a player's career, and Karius was a big part of why Liverpool got to that final that year. I think the other thing, I seen something there, I think it was yesterday, somebody put up on Twitter, which was prior to that, he played 37 games for Liverpool with 17 clean sheets. So he's not a bad keeper. He's not a bad keeper at all, I don't think. There's a lot of Liverpool TV. If you look at it online, you see some of the saves he made. Some of them are world class. So I'm quietly confident with him in the sticks. I think he'll do a good job, and hopefully he gets that redemption that's there. I think we need to maybe buckle up the back four a little bit, because there was a couple of the first 15 minutes was probably the worst we played all season against Liverpool. It was so uncharacteristic, both Shaw and Botman to, lose players and look, the ball from Salah into Gakpo and stuff. Look, world-class ball, world-class front three, and their movement we couldn't contend with. But Man United are a different piece to contend with. They don't really, for me, watching the games and watching the two teams, Man United don't really have that. They don't play that kind of ball. It's more through the middle and on the ground to Rashford and letting him run. So I think defensively, we've got a much different proposition, but I think the back four with Karius there, I think it's, having that four in front makes Karius a much better proposition as well. I would be worried if that back four wasn't in front of him, but I still think he'll do a good job.
Yeah, I think one of the things I saw with people who were complaining about the fact that Karius won't know his defenders because he hasn't played in a competitive game with them. I'm sure that obviously he's that experienced. He's played at nationals for Germany, so he'll not play behind that back four often. But obviously, probably not often at all because he still had Neuer in front of him. Do you know what I mean? So he would probably play friendlies for Germany and so on. So this is not something he's not experienced before in his career. It's probably obviously a bigger game than a friendly German international where he's probably a makeshift international back four. But there's nothing to say that with the experience this guy's got, and the fact you've got leaders in front of you like Trippier, Botman's becoming a really big part and leader of that back four. Dan Burn, obviously, you got the captain's armband after Trippier went back, so obviously he's seen as a leader in that dressing room as well. All these people and everybody else in front of them are going to be on Karius' side and right behind them, just like all the fans should be. I know there's been like different groups on social media, distraught with the fact that he's playing. I think every single Newcastle fan should be behind the guy and just get right. I don't know what you think on that one, Andrew.
Yeah, of course, goes without saying, that every Newcastle fan should be behind him. And I think for the large part, most people will be because it's bigger than him. This is a team game, and Eddie Howe's approach to things is very much we win as a team, we lose as a team. You can see when things don't go quite to plan that if he's asked about anyone, he never throws anyone under the bus. It's all about what the team have done or how the team can do better. Or thankfully for the last few months, how well the team have done together as a collective unit rather than picking anyone out for praise or singling anyone out for criticism. So, we all should be behind Karius as fans, and I'm sure we will be on the day because, it's the clues in the name, isn't it? Without patronising anybody, the clues in the name. It's Newcastle United, and that's what everyone should be on the day, and I'm sure we will be. I'm sure fans will be.
Yeah. So obviously we've discussed obviously with the back five there as well. Now the other big talking point this week is what the midfield and the front three is going to be, because obviously I know Chris brought this question up a few weeks ago. Does Bruno walk back into the side when he comes back after his 3-game suspension? I think the way the results have gone over the last few weeks highlights how much he is the integral part of the machine at that midfield three. He makes everything tick, and we found it a little bit harder to break things down. When he hasn't been there. So obviously he does come straight back at the side. And I think probably everybody on the panel here would agree with that. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah. And I think if I'm then, for me, I think we've missed Joe Linton in that middle three. For me, I think he's just that energy that he had when he came back. Yes, he plays really well on the left. And he gives that defensive solidity to Dan Burn. But I still think he's more solid in the midfield as a three. So I don't know. What do you think? He'll stay in that three alongside Bruno, or do you think that Eddie Howe might be tempted to put him back out wide, depending on obviously the fitness of Joe Willock as well? Obviously, that's a big issue as well. But if everyone was fit, where would you guys put him? Martin, I'll start with you first.
I don't see Willock starting. I think Eddie's quite I think the way he manages the players, I think he will. I think Andrew's right. I think ASM has played himself into contention for the cup game. I think we need. When I look at Manchester United, I think their back four can be got at. I don't think they're defensively that good. I think they attack well, but I think we can manage that. I think with Bruno coming back into that middle, you've got the battle of the Brunos. And I think if we can kind of contain Rashford, I think we stand a really, really good chance. But I think for us, I agree. I think that Joe Linton in the middle with Bruno and Longstaff is our best middle three for me. I think ASM plays himself back into contention. Obviously, Almiron on the opposite side. The big question for me is who starts up front, and I think looking at it, I think Eddie Howe will keep faith with Callum Wilson. Me personally, I would start Isaac. I think he gives us a bit more all round. I think, looking from the weekend, the game against Liverpool, I think Wilson should have buried that chance. I think it was really, really sloppy finishing, in my opinion. And maybe, there's others might not agree. But I would start with Isaac, but I think ASM on that left, Almiron right, and I would go with Isaac. But I think Eddie will probably bench Joe Willock if he is anywhere fit. I think he'll start with ASM, and I would roll back Joe Linton into the middle with Longstaff and Bruno, and I would have Isaac, but I think Eddie will go with Wilson, is what my gut tells me.
Chris, I know you mentioned your thoughts last night and on the show last night, so I'll get Andrew and Aaron's thoughts on this. So, are you sort of some sort of agreement to what Martin's mentioned about how you would line up, or? I think the big talk about, as he mentioned, is who's going to start up front. Is he going to keep faith with Callum Wilson, or does he start Alexander Isak up front?
Me personally, like Martin, I'd start Isak up front. I think Isak should retain his place, albeit I know he's not looked electrifying in the last couple of games. I think with Callum Wilson being out, I get the argument for why you start Callum Wilson and you bring on Isak as an impact player. But for me, I think I don't know. I feel like it'd be a bit of a risk putting Callum Wilson back in, and he's not got that match fitness. He's not been playing football recently, whereas Alexander Isak, he's got the minutes under his belt, and I'm kind of thinking hopefully he would come good. So for me, I would start Isak. By the way, just so Andrew and Aaron don't think I'm an absolute lunatic when Richie was mentioning about that Bruno comment. You
always like to be devil's advocate, don't you? That's why.
Yeah.
I always do it. And I think this was before we sold Shelby as well, and before obviously Willock, pulled up with an injury too. But I just wondered whether if we'd gone on this 3-game run and we'd had a fantastic run, let's say we beat Liverpool, we beat Bournemouth, and we were flying. I was asking, well, would Bruno come straight back in the team? Like, I'd want him to, but would he? But thankfully the results haven't been great, and Willock's now injured, and Shelby was sold, so it was like, yeah, it's pretty easy answer. And I'm looking forward to Bruno coming back. I think the stats
for Bruno line up though, Chris.
Yeah,
if you look at the stats that Sky put up on the Liverpool game,
he's brilliant.
17 or so games, 11 or 12 of those, we've won with him in the team. The other games we've either lost or drawn. So, he does make us tick. And I think if he'd have been in that team against Liverpool, I think we'd have probably won that game, or certainly come back and fought harder and taken maybe a couple more chances. So look, Bruno for me has to be, along with that back four, Bruno's the first name that goes on that sheet. Once you penciled in that back four and Pope, obviously, we've got Karius going in, but that back four and Bruno are the first 5 on that team sheet for me, and then you build the rest around it.
Yeah, and just to add as well, I would definitely play Joe Linton in the middle because that's his best position. I appreciate, it to accommodate Willock. I can see why they put I can see why they put Joe Linton on the left to accommodate Willock. But for me, if he's that desperate to get Willock in, I'd swap Willock for Longstaff. But I know he's not going to do that, and I don't think he should either. I think Longstaff's in his place. Bruno then goes in the sitting position, and Joe Linton. We need Big Joe in the middle. We need him in the middle, to combat, the likes of Casemiro, the likes of Fred, the likes of Bruno Fernandes. You want someone who's going to put the foot in and, give you that energy, give you that work rate, but he can also, he's big and strong and powerful. How good Joe is on the ball. So for me, Joe Linton has to start in the middle.
Yeah. Although PDK does say that Joe Linton's stats coming on from the left are way better.
That's interesting.
I think one of the things about with Joe Linton playing in the middle, though, you play on the left-hand side of the 3 as well, so you can still cover a little bit. Now, as Andrew mentioned earlier, I was at the game on Saturday, and I thought Alan Maximin was excellent on Saturday. I thought it was one of his best games this season. And I agree. I think he's played himself into the team on Saturday. What would your starting front six be, Aaron and Andrew?
I think, as we've said, a lot of it depends on who's fit, and that doesn't just include Willock. I think that includes Wilson because, Eddie Howe says that he's came through unscathed, but you don't actually know, whether he's up to speed or not. I personally think if everybody was fit, he would go back to that sort of tried and trusted route of having Joelinton on the left and Willock in the middle with Longstaff and Bruno. I don't think that'll happen Sunday. I agree with you all. I think we've been asking Alan St. Maximin to do it off the bench for weeks, and he hasn't been doing it. And actually, he's had a blinder against Liverpool, and was probably the correct decision to win man of the match. So I would start him. I think, me and Andrew were discussing this earlier in the week. He's a confidence player, and what could have given him more confidence in that performance on Saturday. So for me personally, I think I would go Joelinton, Bruno, Longstaff, and then Maxi, Miggy, and Callum Wilson.
Andrew?
Eddie Howe doesn't like to change his side. So if Joe Willock was fit and ready to go, on one hand I could see him coming back in, moving Joelinton out onto the left, Max dropping to the bench, and then Callum Wilson coming in for Isak. And obviously does that because he likes to get the team familiar with itself, a run of momentum, etc., etc. But then I do wonder if, because this is a one-off game, this is 90 minutes of football for you to win a cup, does he apply the same logic that he does to the Premier League? Because obviously you could draw a Premier League game and then win the next one, and you build and you build and you build. But this is one chance, isn't it, to win a cup? So I do wonder whether the decision making if everyone is fit is slightly different, just because, like I say, this is one chance. And that being said, I could see Isak starting because he looks a lot more lively than Callum Wilson. Callum Wilson just hasn't looked himself since the World Cup. I know he scored against West Ham and then he picked up that injury, which was unfortunate, so he missed the Bournemouth game. But Isak and Maxi seem to be on the same wavelength. Isak should have scored against Liverpool. It was a brilliant cross from Maxi, and he just looks a bit more threatening, I think. And then given that he's got the minutes under his belt of late as well, and again just rolls into the fact that this is 90 minutes of football, I could see Isak playing up top, Maxi on the left is what I would do, and then Joelinton, Bruno, and Longstaff across the middle with, of course, Miggy over on the other side. And then you have, Joe Willock to bring off the bench. You have Callum Wilson to bring off the bench, which are not bad options at all.
The one thing I will say though about St. Maximin, and none of us have mentioned it because, we're also hyped up after Saturday in his attacking performance. The one negative is that, Dan Burn will need a lot of cover in this game. He's going to have, either Sancho or Rashford or Bruno down that right side. And I think that's the one thing that Maxi, it's the one negative really, is that Dan Burn looks a lot more exposed when he is playing ahead of him. Whereas when it was Willock and, Joelinton sort of manning that left channel, they give Burn a lot more cover. So I'm sure Eddie Howe will, be thinking about that as well, because it's not just all about going forward.
But then on that point, do you then, if you're Eddie Howe, do you take Maxi aside and go, well, look, we're well aware that we are sacrificing this defensive element of this team, and it's on you, it's for you essentially. It's on you to make it worthwhile. You've got to go and prove to the crowd that I was right to do that. And yes, Dan Burn might get exposed a few times, but if we concede one, but Maxi sets one up and scores one, then it's worth it. And I just wonder if now is the time we're going to see Eddie Howe's man management skills. Jason Tyndall, we all hear and we've all read about just how good them two are together in the ears of the players and the arm around the shoulder. Is this now the weekend that we really, really see just how much it's worth by saying to St. Maximin, this is your day. This is your 90 minutes of football. Go and make yourself a hero. Stop being the Nelly man and go and win the cup for Newcastle United.
Yeah, I think that's probably what you've got to say to him. And I think, as I said earlier, we've all been waiting to see Maxi, the Maxi of old. All of a sudden he's gone from being the main man at Newcastle United under previous managers to suddenly having a big question mark over his future. And if he wants to, secure a long-term future at the club, games like Sunday are ones where he needs to be performing in. So, yeah, I do absolutely agree with that, Andrew.
I think one of the things I think would probably all agree we would need more out of Alan Saint-Maximin is consistency, because it's few and far between that we get these ones. Like, I think we mentioned obviously when Bruno got injured, obviously there was we had a feeling that Joe would have to move back into the midfield due to obviously Shelby going, and obviously Willard getting injured as well. But we didn't really have any centre midfielders anyway, so we knew that Saint-Maximin was going to come back in, and we said that these 3 games are pretty much like an audition for him, because he's now having to fight for his place. And I don't know what you, Andrew and Aaron, thought on this, but I don't think he was fantastic in the first 2 games of those 3. But on Saturday, it was a different thing. I don't know whether, obviously, if you were both at the game, but one thing I noticed early on in the first half, while it was 0-0, I think he went down the left-hand side towards the Leazes, and he got tackled, but rather than like where he used to on the floor, whinge, slow to get up and stuff like that, he was up pretty quick, and he was at the crowd, and he was jeering the crowd to get behind him, which is something you don't really see off Alan Saint-Maximin. But I thought he had a feeling this was the game he had. For him, this is the game that was going to stamp his authority on what he wants to be going forward.
Yeah, I agree. I just want to do it. I want to do a test on you guys, not Aaron, because Aaron knows probably what the test is going to be. I want you guys to tell me the last time Alan Saint-Maximin had a good game when he started, like his best game this season, apart from that Liverpool game.
I think we've got to go back to City, really.
Exactly the point. I was glad you've just said that, because that just proves about the consistency argument. How are we sitting here? And I know he's missed a few games through injury, but how are we sitting here? That game was in August. We're sitting here in February, and we're seeing the last belter game he had was back in August. Aside from that, that Liverpool game on Saturday, and I think that just proves to him really that it's not being good enough a man of his talent. Injuries aside, you can't be going that length of time and not having a better game than one that was back in August. And what we now 7-8 months ahead of that, it's not good enough. But thankfully, he did do it on Saturday. I thought he was man of the match, and fingers crossed he can do it again on Sunday.
Yeah, well, I think like myself and Pete, who do the show, like we fell out last summer, right? Because we had a row over Alan Saint-Maximin, right? Because I've been shouting for the last season and a half, he's just not consistent enough to warrant a first team place, and he's becoming a luxury. And the other side of it is, in my view, I don't really feel he's an Eddie Howe kind of player, in my opinion. So he hasn't been consistent enough. And a lot of us have gone, okay, look, well, he'll come back, he'll do it again. Like, this is the biggest stage now. This is a cup final at Wembley. If you get your chance, for me, it's now or never. As you said, Andrew, go and win the cup. Go and make yourself a folklore hero, because that's what you will become. If we win that cup, that 11 and that squad becomes heroes. They go down in history. So he now should be looking at that and going, right, if ever there's a game where I'm going to bust myself to exhaustion to go and win something, it's this game on Sunday. The league, as he moves forward, and Chris, you'll probably back me up on this, this is the season for me. If that inconsistency is still there right through to the summer, then for me, ASM has to go. And I know a lot of people probably listening won't like to hear that, but he's not a luxury in that team that we can carry in that position. We have other options.
And do you know what it'll probably be, Mars, as well? When you say he has to go, that it will probably be Saint-Maximin himself saying that, because Eddie Howe will be going, I can't start you week in, week out, because we can't afford to carry certain players. And, Saint-Maximin has been absolutely brilliant for us at times, and he did carry us, and we should all be thankful. And I don't want to kind of boot him out the door, but Eddie Howe could end up saying, listen, you're my impact sub. And he goes, well, I want first team football. And he'll go, well, you know what to do then, because I can't start you week in, week out.
Absolutely. And the one thing that me and Pete agree on is he's much better as an impact player coming off the bench than he is as a starting player. And he has been.
I think another interesting point is John Askew just put a comment in there. Obviously, going back to what Andrew mentioned about that, we said that the Man City game, he mentioned about he did not start the Wolves. It was a caddy goal. But I think for me, and I don't know if anyone else remembers the game, I don't think he did really much during the game.
I was about to say, Rich, I was there. He was all right, and he had some good moments, but that goal elevates him. Like if he hadn't scored that goal, you'd look back and go, nah, it wasn't.
But the interesting thing about that, I was going to go on next, which we've mentioned about him being a confidence player. If you look at, well, that's probably one of the best goals he's going to score in his career. It was a fantastic goal. But obviously that raised his confidence so much. And you look how he ended up getting injured. He was trying to chase back to stop a goal. And how often do you see that? That's the sort of thing where he's got that adrenaline running. He's got himself, and then all of a sudden you start to think, when he did that and got injured, you start to think you need to do that on a consistent basis. You need to be able to work back that good on every game, not just obviously that. I don't know what your thoughts on that, Andrew and Aaron are.
Isn't the question maybe, can he do that? I mean, when we're speaking about this earlier in the week, I think it was on last week's episode. Can Alan St. Maximin be the player that Eddie Howe wants him to be, that we think Eddie Howe wants him to be? The person who tracks back and protects down. And we have seen his game change slightly, and that he is tracking back more and he's trying to get stuck in. But you feel it sometimes comes at a cost of that flair, that flair player that we all love seeing. And it's about getting the balance right. And I just wonder whether by making him more defensive, and it sounds daft saying this because, of course, by making him more defensive, you then lose the attacking genius of him in some ways. And I just wonder, I just don't know if he can change his game to such an extent where he becomes this person who is consistently tracking back, because that's just not what he is. That's just, Laurent Robert didn't track back that much, and we all remember this, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think it's the French players. It's a flair player. He's like when he used to play ball. Any of us that played football, you always had that one player that the gaffer used to say, right, just go on and do your thing. You didn't actually have a position. You're just all over the pitch, running around like a daft arse. But you had the potential to win the game. So you were always given that free role to go across the pitch, move in, pull forward. You never ever defended. And I think that's exactly the kind of player Maxi is. He just wants to come off that bench and be allowed to roll all around the pitch, to get the ball and go and do his thing. But that's not the way that Eddie Howe sets his teams up. And for that reason, that's why I say I don't think he's an Eddie Howe kind of player. He's a luxury. Yeah.
It was different under Steve Bruce, wasn't it? Because what the plan was basically give it to Alan St. Maximin, hope something comes good. But here, you have so many potential game winners in that team that he's not the big name anymore. And again, you do think longer term, how does it fit into the game plan going forward? But if we're just looking at Sunday starts for me, and you wind him up and you set him off, and hopefully you can prove the doubters, including myself, wrong.
Yeah.
Aaron, one of the reasons I was going to ask this, do you think that obviously we're perhaps seeing a little bit of the more defending from is because he now also has the threat of Anthony Gordon taking his place?
Yeah, absolutely. I really do like Maxi, and I feel like it's such a shame that he got the injury he did at the time he did, because the start of the season, it's very, very easy to forget because obviously he's been out for so long, but he was one of Newcastle's best players. We all always harp on about that City game and, what he did to Kyle Walker. And it does feel that he just sort of got, stopped in his tracks with that injury, and then obviously had the setback. But yeah, now, I feel like we're always constantly saying the next few months are crucial for him because, he needs to be more consistent. But now he really, really does, because they've gone out and signed a £40 million player who can play in his position, similar type of flair player, but actually will graft and do the sort of dirty work at the other end of the pitch. So, yeah, absolutely. There's competition for places in this team as, more and more additions are signed and the club continue to grow. You're going to have more type of players of Alan St. Maximin's quality battling out for that place. And it does sort of feel like time's running out for him to, secure a spot here long term. We've got Marty here saying that he says he's got to go in the summer if he isn't, consistent. And I think a lot of fans feel that way, that, we can only wait for so long for him to hit his potential. And we've been saying for 2 or 3 seasons now that we want to see the best of him. And, for one reason or another, it hasn't happened. But on a personal level, I do like him. I think he's when he's good, he's really good. And, we just need to see it a bit more often from him.
Can I ask Andrew and Aaron, do you think, and again, this is just my opinion, but do you seem to think that St. Maximin kind of attitude-wise possibly changed up a little when Bruno came in. I kind of think there was a little bit there where he wasn't, Bruno started to hit the ground running and kind of became, for want of a better word, the fans' idol to a degree with his performances, scoring the goals. We were winning games. Maxi wasn't really getting in. Do you think that's put his nose out a little bit and affecting the performances, or?
I think maybe at the start. I mean, Andrew mentioned it earlier, and we always say, the tactic under Steve Bruce was just give it to Maxi and see what he can do. He was the main man. He was the go-to. And yeah, maybe a little bit at the start, he was a bit out of sorts. But I think, I remember when Maxi first signed from Nice and everyone said, oh, he's got, terrible attitude problems on the training ground. And actually, he proved a lot of people wrong with that. Eddie Howe did a lot of work with him in the summer, him and Jason Tyndall. Ever since he's came back from this most recent injury, him and Isak have been doing extra training sessions that they themselves have asked for. They haven't been told to do it by the club. So I don't think you can fault what he's doing off the pitch at the minute. I think, all the signs out of the club is that he's, really knuckling down. But I think he maybe has learned the last couple of months that he has to knuckle down or, he's not going to have a future here.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing you've mentioned there is the just to before we start wrapping up with a few questions off the audience, is the relationship that he's got with Isak, which I think is another reason why, for me, I would potentially be leaning towards Isak starting over Wilson. The link-up play, and I think one of the things that Pete mentioned, was the fluidity the front three swapped about on the Liverpool game. There weren't one on the left, one in the middle. They seemed to move around freely, and that was really good. And I think that the build-up play that Isak and Maxi have at the minute, it seems to be they seem to know they're building that relationship, but they seem to know where they're going to be. There was one ball in the second half where it was the Isak chance where he missed it to the top left corner, but the through ball from St. Maximin was literally right above it. How he got that ball actually through it, did that through that gap to him, was fantastic. But it goes to show that relationship's there. Do you think that's something that's spurring him on as well? Because he wants to be part of this going forward with Isak, because I know there's probably other players in the squad that we'd want to get rid of, or so should we say, need to be moved on before Maxi. However, he's probably one of the only sellable assets we've got. Obviously, if we decide to get rid of him as well, or it's one of those touch and go situations with him at the moment. Do you agree, Andrew?
I think I don't think he wants to be here just because of ease. I think he wants to be here because he knows where the club is going to go. He can see just within the first 12, 18 months of this project just how big it's going to get. He talked about, didn't he, before the takeover, was it? I think it was in the January before the takeover, about ambition. And he was kind of, it sounded very much like he was angling for a move. It was like, throwing the cards down at Mike Ashley and saying, if you don't start buying players who can come in and around me and up in the level of the team and showing a bit of ambition, then, I don't want to be here because I want to go and win trophies. He's got that now. He's got top quality players around him. He's got players who can take off the responsibility from his shoulders. He's not relied on to be the sole match winner. And I actually think that his attitude's been spot on. I think it's just not clicked for him on the pitch. And obviously, I've seen a few people there in the comments hitting back at me and saying, well, he hasn't played. Okay, fair enough. I did mention he got injured, but he has had appearances off the bench where he's not looked like he's not done anything to force his way into the team. But as we say, Sunday's a massive, massive, massive chance for him to do that. And there's still, I still think there's a future for St. Maximin. He's just got to seize the opportunity he's been handed, because, as people have mentioned, there's Anthony Gordon waiting in the wings. Joe Linton can play in that position. Elliot Anderson could play out wide. There are players there that will take the opportunity if it comes to them. And St. Maximin has got his wish. There's ambition there. He's now just got to show he can be part of the pool, part of this club going forward. And fingers crossed he seizes that opportunity on Sunday.
Aaron, do you agree with Andrew there?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, for Maxi as well, he knows when it's going good, the praise he gets off the fans. I mean, I know it's probably hard to remember now because it seems like so long ago that he was performing on a regular basis, but under Bruce and, even the early days of how, he had such a good relationship with the fans, especially on social media. And I think he does see his long-term future here. He's spoken to the Chronicle not too long ago and said that he really wants to be part of this journey. Obviously the question was about Isak. He's got a very, very good relationship with him on and off the pitch. The same with Bruno. And yeah, just as Andrew said, he knows that the direction this club is going. But I know I keep saying it, but he needs to be consistent. And we keep saying this, I've been saying it for about a year on the podcast with Andrew, that we need to see more from him. And hopefully, Sunday is the first step to seeing, that on a regular basis.
Yeah, I agree with you. We've got a few questions. We want to ask you a few questions before we let you both go.
Yeah, fire away.
Yeah, Mark, I can see you've got a few started there. I'll let you.
Yeah, I have. Okay, this one from Tom Dixon, one of our regulars. Evening, Tom. Question for Andrew and Aaron: who do you think will keep Casemiro and Rashford quiet on Sunday?
Well, I mean, I think Joe Linton's going to have a massive part. He's going to be there to rattle some cages, isn't he? And Rashford, I mean, I don't know what side we think he'll play on. Is he going to play through the centre, or is he going to play out on one of the left? I mean, if he plays out on the left, then it's Trippier, isn't it? And Trippier's not quite looked at the level we've come to know him at recently. The last few goals, you can argue that he's been at fault. So he's going to have to be on the top of his game, and Rashford's just unstoppable. So whether you get someone to maybe just bundle him over in the first couple of minutes and let him know that we're watching him, I don't know. I don't really like to see that, but that might have to be the scenario, and in the fairest possible way, of course.
Without getting a red and sent off would be perfect.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, Aaron, same question.
Yeah, pretty much the same. I think Joel and Casemiro is a very, very good matchup. Two very physical players. I also think Bruno's got a big part to play in the middle because, Casemiro will want to dominate that ball and spray passes about, and, Bruno will want to be doing that as well. I think when it comes to Rashford, I think the last couple of weeks he's been here, there and everywhere, but I think Ten Hag probably thinks his best position is down the middle, so I think, as somebody mentioned earlier, I think Saturday was the first time we've really seen the two centre-backs be a bit shaky in recent months. Very uncharacteristic, the first sort of 20 minutes from them. But I'd like to see, him up against Botman and Botman showing what he can do against him.
Okay, doc. This one from Mark Todd. Do you think that the club should have put big screens up in St James's to screen the match?
I think in an ideal world, yes. But again, I think the turnaround in getting things prepped and ready, we saw with the ticket stuff, how they went to the trust and the trust explained, how that worked and the questions they were asked and how quickly they had to get their advice back to the club so they couldn't, put out memos, etc. That gives you an insight into just how quickly everything's had to be turned around. So you've got to remember as well that, the cost of all this, you're going to have to pay security, you're going to have to pay stewards, you're going to have to pay probably the catering staff and all that. Like, it's not going to be cheap, and it's probably not going to be it's going to be more expensive because you literally have,
policing as well, I would imagine.
Yeah, exactly, all that. 3 weeks to turn it around. You then also, where you're going to put the big screen on the pitch, you're going to have to buy in all the covering, which won't be cheap. Or do you in the pitch? All this. There's loads of elements that play into it. And I just think what getting to the final may do is in the future, this summer they'll look around and have a contingency plan just in case another final comes around next season where they can say, okay, this is where we've already got the calls in, we've already got the plan. This is what we're going to do. They might have had that already. I don't know, but I just think the turnaround probably made it a little less easier than it should have been. I mean, there's no big screen as far as I'm aware in the city centre either, I don't think, is there, Aaron? So again, it's probably down to the turnaround and cost of it, I would imagine.
Yeah, and I think one thing that, in a couple of years' time, now that they've got that Strawberry Place land back, is, they're probably going to build a fan zone there for pre-game anyway, which I wouldn't be surprised if, should they get to another final, that could be quite a way, good way of using it rather than having it on the pitch. But I do agree with Andrew. I think the timing of the turnaround, it probably did just prove too much for them.
Yeah. Okay. What else have we got? Okay, another one here from Mark. He says that if they do expand St James's, Do you think that they should keep some of the space for non-season ticket holders to give as many people a chance to get to see games?
Look, it's so difficult. On one hand, I do get the point. As Rich touched on earlier, there's a lot of reasons why people, personally can't have season tickets, and we don't want it to be a closed club. But then, at the same time, the demand is going to be so crazy for tickets in the next couple of years. But I think the club will certainly ask, fans for their opinion when it comes to extending the stadium, expanding, the stand. But yeah, it's back to what we said about the cup tickets. I think whichever way they go, they're going to upset some people.
Okay.
I don't think, however they expand it, it'll fully go all out to season ticket holders, because that's just not going to be workable, because you're going to have generations coming through who can't get the games. It's the same with the away ticket situation, isn't it? At some point, you're going to have to do something to allow not just the younger generation, but those who maybe weren't in a position to get to away games for whatever reason, work, money, who are now in a position. Because it's not all about, like we go back to the start, it's not all about being a better fan. Just at this point in time, you're not able to go for whatever reason. Scenarios change, and I think something will have to be done to make sure the door is always open for either the next generation or just the fans that at the time couldn't get a season ticket or couldn't go to away games for whatever reason.
Yeah, I think for me, the away games thing is a piece for me that needs to be looked at. I know season ticket holders or members or whatever, but going from Dublin, it's easier for me flight wise to go to an away game in London or Manchester than it is to go and see them play at home, purely because of cost and flights and the sheer availability of flights to those two cities. I would stand more of a chance of making the trip affordable, taking into account I'd need hotels and everything else before a flight home. So it is something that, I know Chris and Pete, you go to quite a few of the away games, but it's something that I don't have the luxury of doing, purely because of getting a hold of tickets sometimes, and then just the availability of getting in and out on flights and stuff. So it's something that I'd like, would be nice to be looked at in the longer term,
Just to add to that, and I don't know if this is going to open a can of worms, but I think your point there is a reason why the trust, I think, should have a little bit more support. I know they got a lot of criticism from certain sections about the ticket advice, and they've got their critics, quite a few of them, across social media. But the club really seem intent on working with the Newcastle United Supporters Trust. So it's issues like that where instead of people maybe on the outside complaining, it might be better to get on the inside and stand up and voice your opinion and your concerns, and that might be a better way for those concerns to be raised. Because what you make, and Marty, the point is dead on. It is easier for people to get to away games if they're traveling from abroad, and the way to get that sorted, the way to get that maybe in front of the club is via the trust, where they can raise these issues. Because unfortunately, airing it on our shows or on the pod or on social media, it's not going to get any traction.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah, no, it's a fair point. Okay, we've got a couple more questions.
Can I just add something into that as well?
Yeah,
it kind of touched on what I originally said, and Andrew makes a great point. When you're talking about the tickets and stuff, because it is difficult. And what, like Martin's just mentioned there, like I get to more away games than what I do home games. I'm lucky enough. Sometimes people help sort me out, with away tickets and stuff. But what always strikes me, and what always flabbergasts me is, and I don't know, Andrew, if you know this yourself, but when I go to away games, I'd say the average age at away games is probably anywhere between 18 and 25. It's amazing how young the fan base is away from home, and it's brilliant. And it's a brand new fan base and stuff like that, and it's great. But then it does leave me kind of looking around, thinking, well, how are these lads getting these tickets? So it must have come from generations, and it must be getting passed down, which again is lovely. But then it's well, it goes back to what Aaron says. You're then talking or feeling like you're in a closed shop, because you're never going to be able to get in that shop. Because even if, I don't know, say next season I was lucky enough to get a season ticket, I'm sure it's highly unlikely, but let's say I did. In order for me to build up my loyalty points to be able to buy my own away ticket, I would need loyalty points. But the loyalty points are starting at 150, 140, 130, 100, 80. I'm never going to get one. So then it's like, well, I could have a season ticket from now till I'm about 103, and I'd probably get about 3 away tickets. Because the only time I get an away ticket is if demand was low. Now, interesting what you said, Aaron, because, you know, it's our first cup final, you know, and hey, I don't ever want to be like this, by the way, but again, talking devil's advocate, in 5 years' time, are we going to be as excited about the Carabao Cup if we're in the Champions League every season?
I know Manchester United fans that have been giving their tickets away to Newcastle fans because they've been to 10 finals in the last 15 years.
Yeah, I can believe it.
I don't ever want Newcastle United to become, like Manchester City, where, the fan base does become like that. And I don't think it will, but I just think the first final is always going to be the biggest and the one that people are most upset about. And I just think, like you say, if they make, and this is being completely optimistic, if they make the next 4 of the next 5 Carabao Cup finals, in 5 years' time, are you really going to be as bothered? So, yeah, that was the point I was making. But I do agree with what you mean. And, there's fans that have been to, 2 or 3 away games in this cup run or in the last couple of years, but they're using other people's tickets. They're not getting points for themselves. And like you say, how are you ever supposed to, get anywhere close to 120 or 140 where they're starting at now, if you can't actually, get them yourself?
What I will say, I'm going to say this on the record, and you come back at us in 6 or 7 years' time, this fan base will still be as up for the EFL Cup final in 10 years' time as they are for this Sunday. Because just look around, man. They went crazy. We went crazy when the windows were getting cleaned or the Sports Direct signs were coming down. There's something so unique about this club that, yeah, I think every single final they get to, you'll have massive demand, and it'll be a party on Tyneside or a party in Dublin or wherever you are watching it. You're gonna be really excited, whether it be Sunday or in 10, 15 years' time, because there's just something different about this fan club and about this fan base, in this club, and it's special. And yeah, I wouldn't doubt the excitement, not for a moment.
Yeah, no, listen, we got excited when they got rid of the pigeon out of the netting, so do you know what I mean?
that was a sad day, that day. That was a sad
It was, yeah. Yeah, one less fan. Okay, just a quick update for anybody that isn't watching, but Liverpool were 2-0 up. It's now 2-2. Vinicius Jr. with 2 goals and an Alisson clanger. So that will make Karius feel a little bit better, that not only was he having a bad time for Liverpool, but now Alisson Becker is as well. So long may it continue. Okay, a couple of comments more so than questions. So Lisa says Karius is going to be one of those quiz answers in a few years. Which player won the cup but never played in the cup run? So yeah, probably right. Mark Todd asked, obviously, with those that weren't with us earlier, just to let you know, the loaded lads will be in Newcastle for the Southampton game, the weekend of the 29th and 30th. And a few are asking, are we going to do anything live? We are thinking about it, but it's finding a venue and everything else to enable 5 drunks to get hold of a microphone and have a bit of a ramble. So yeah, but we will be out and about. So if we can't line anything up, I'm sure we'll be in a bar somewhere and we can have a bit of crack and do something. But we'll let you know once we know kind of what we're doing. We're just finalizing things up. John Askew asks, does anyone know, will there be a welcome home? Some fans may be staying in London till the Monday, if there is going to be one, even if we lose. 76 was fantastic inside and outside the ground. He says he was in the centre paddocks. Do you lads know, is there anything kind of planned for a return home at all? Or
yeah, so I think Tuesday, if they win, they'll do the parade. Whether anything gets confirmed if they lose, I'm not too sure. But I think should they win, there'll be a statement released from the club pretty much on Sunday night with the plans for the next couple of days.
Okay.
It's interesting because I don't know about you guys, but I remember '99 and outside the Civic Centre, wasn't it? And I remember being lofted in a tree by my dad, and even though we'd lost, it was fantastic. And John then mentioned about 76. I spoke to Tommy Craig for our Wembley supplement, which you can still buy in your local garages and online. Go and get it. And I put out as a story on our website and a podcast as well. And he still talks about that 76 return from the final. getting off the train station, and he actually says he thought there was a brawl outside Central Station because there was that many people. And it took them 2 hours to get from Central Station up to St James's Park, and then when they got there, it was packed out. And he says he will never forget those scenes, and don't underestimate what it meant to the players. So that was back in '76. So it'll be interesting if they do lose, and touch wood they don't, whether they would hold a parade.
Welcome home parade. Yeah.
But would Eddie Howe see it as celebrating failure?
I think it would be nice either way, because I think you still want to acknowledge the players and the feat that they put in and everything else. So for me, if I was over there still, I would want to go and show me appreciation. I think it goes back to the banner that was in St James's not long back. We don't ask for a team that wins, we ask for a team that tries. So for me, I would want to, look, whatever happens, like I'm surrounded by a lot of Man United fans living in Dublin, which, hopefully is not unpleasant when I go back to work on Monday with a hangover. But, I've said to them, it's a one-off game. Anything can happen. And you know what? Even if we lose, I don't give a shit, because if we win, we're the underdogs. If we win, fantastic. First trophy, certainly, I went to 99 and 2000, or 98 and 99 against Arsenal and Man United and seen 2 losses. So for me, at age 53, it's still a chance to hopefully in my lifetime see us lift a trophy. But if they don't, as long as they do themselves proud, and we don't by chance win, I'm still mad proud of my team and my city and my home. So I would always want to celebrate that. Why wouldn't you? So
they're going to do absolutely. They're going to do it. They're going to do it. Come on, lads. Let's have a bit of optimism.
Absolutely. No, I'm
going to win the
confident.
Cup.
And I've got the whole Liverpool fan base living in Dublin right behind us. So because they hate Man U. So actually, considering what it was like on Monday when I went to work after Saturday, this week it's been all about, you better go and stuff them. You better go and stuff them. So it's been a lot better for me this week. Okay, what else have we got? Mark makes a comment, just says, can a team of workhorses win the league? Don't know really, not really sure what he's on about there, but
I think he's saying, Mark, like, because this got brought up. I think, was it on Match of the Day or something? Somebody brought it up and asked. So, like, will a team of, like Jordan Hendersons or James Milners or, those type players, if you had a team full of them, would they win the league? Or do you need those maverick type players, like you say, Maximin, like your De Bruyne's, like your... So they don't necessarily do all the legwork, but they've got that moment of genius, that moment of brilliance, and they'll just do something, and it'll get you 2 points.
I think something that's highlighted by that, though, is the fact, if you look at the fact Bruno's been missing for the last 3 games, we've had no one who can play unlock defences from that midfield. Yeah. That nice. I think that pretty much sums up what Mark's saying there.
But Bruno's brilliant because he can do both, actually, can't he?
Yeah. Okay, what have we got then? Lisa says, serious question. Are any of the Man United fans going to London? Where will they go as Newcastle are about to take over Trafalgar Square and every pub within a 3-mile radius of Wembley? Don't know, Lisa, is the answer. But is there not something about the pubs around Wembley? Is there not? I've read a few things that, like, there's...
Allegedly, they're not going to be showing any football within, what is it, 1 or 2 mile radius.
Well, do you know what it is? I actually find that the strangest thing, that you can go to the box park, pay for a ticket, go and drink your beer there, and they're not showing the match. I absolutely do not get that.
Well, no, the box park
is just tickets, isn't it?
It's just the people with tickets. So if you've got a match day ticket, you can go to the box park. But as soon as the match kicks off, the box park's going to be empty. Because every fucker's in the stadium.
Yeah, you think that they'd just refill that then with box park tickets for during the match and just let you have your beers and play it again? Yeah. I don't get that, but anyway.
Weird.
Okay, one more for the lads then. We're down to this last one anyway. Any news, or has anybody heard anything about whether Castori have agreed to end the contract early? And if there's anything on sponsors or kit suppliers at all flying around? I would imagine it's fairly quiet, given it's Cup week and everything else, unless you had heard anything different.
I mean, obviously there's a bit of confusion about, how long that Castor deal is, and, typical old Newcastle United fashion, it was announced as a multi-year deal. Darren Eales has spoken publicly, to the media about it, and says that they will look to, try and improve some of the negatives, whether that's just him being a bit, what's the word? That's just him sort of keeping his cards close to his chest. I think, you only have to look on social media to see how many, problems they've had with this deal. Peter Silverson, who's came in at the club as the new chief commercial officer, very, very good partnership with Arsenal when he was at that club. So you can easily see why the links are there. But yeah, I wouldn't be too surprised if they did end that deal early.
Okay. That's kind of it for the questions, lads. So I'm just kind of flicking up the rest of the comments here.
Yeah,
So yeah,
one thing I've got to do, obviously, before I get you go is one is do you know, is there anything lined up for the media in the build up for the rest of the week, and also when you get down in London before the game? And I've also, the last thing I've asked is, what's the score going to be, lads?
Yeah, we haven't asked that.
Well, in terms of what we're doing, so me and Aaron and Kieran, Kelly and Lee Ryder, we're going down on Saturday, traveling from Sunderland, and me and Aaron will be documenting our journey down. And we've started up the Everything's Black and White podcast YouTube channel now, so there'll be loads of there's going to be like a video diary and stuff on there of the day, and obviously what happens up on Saturday night at Trafalgar Square. We've got a couple of live events as well on Saturday. One's at the Dolphin opposite King's Cross. That is unfortunately sold out, but the one at the Nag's Head in Covent Garden isn't ticketed. So if anybody wants to come along and talk to myself, Aaron, Lee and Kieran, that one's free. As long as there's space, you'll be able to get in. It's just opposite the tube station, so come along to that, and then we'll be off to Wembley pretty early. Won't on Sunday and into the press access and setting up for hopefully what will be a win. And I'm gonna go 2-1 to Newcastle.
Okay.
I'm going to go, and Andrew already knows my prediction, and I'm being deadly serious when I say this. I think it's going to be 0-0 full time, 0-0 extra time. Loris Karius, the hero. Newcastle win on penalties.
He's deadly serious.
I'm deadly serious for that.
We'll keep ours till later in the week, mate. We've just got to get the guests on part at the moment. But right, lads, thank you very much for joining us. It was nice seeing you the week, and great to have you on. Aaron, thanks for making your debut. Fantastic debut. Andrew, nice to see you once again. You're always welcome to Channel of Pairs. Before you both go, do you want to give yourselves a plug where we can find you on your socials, and also the podcast, well, for anyone who might not be subscribed already?
So I'm at ADM Musgrove on Twitter, and the YouTube channel is just the Everything is Black and White podcast, and the same as well on your podcast provider. And me and Aaron do a weekly show every Monday, and you'll start seeing kind of individual videos on our YouTube channel every day now from either me or Aaron or Lee and Kieran as well. So yeah, it'd be nice if you can hit a subscribe on that.
Yeah, and I'm Aaron J. Stokes at Twitter, and yeah, as Andrew said, we do the Monday show together, usually reviewing the match. So yeah, make sure to check that out next time Newcastle win.
I've got to ask one question. It's literally because it's just come in, and it's a really relevant one because it's been a long time since we've had this sort of thing. But Michael Pomar has put this in, and he wants to know: Have you already designed the front page for the paper if we win the final, or for the final, or if we win?
As far as I'm aware, not yet. But that's mainly because our main print guys decided to take the week off before Wembley. But one thing I do know is that either in tomorrow's paper or Thursday's paper, you're going to be able to get a special Eddie Howe cutout mask. So if you buy a paper this week, then yeah, you can treat yourself to that. But no plans yet, as I'm aware, of the front page just yet.
Yeah, but whatever it will be, because I just want to give a shout out to the guy who tends to design it. He's called Gaz. Probably won't be watching. I don't even know if he's a Newcastle fan or not, but he is a fantastic designer. He designs pretty much all the kind of extra pull-out stuff you see, and we're very grateful to have him on board when we do need these sort of things. And with the way Newcastle United's going in the future, we'll probably need him every May, hopefully, and every February for the domestic cups at least. So we'll be very busy. But yeah, guys, if you are watching, you are tremendous.
Yeah, fantastic way to go. So, lads, I want to say thank you on behalf of the channel for joining us. Your company's been much appreciated. Have a good time this weekend. I think that's the best way we would say it. What we'll do is we'll let you go now, and then we'll get on with rounding off the show with the sponsors and stuff. But thanks a lot for joining us, lads.
Yeah, I was just also going to say, just if either one of you does by chance, I'm not wishing it on it, but if one of the two of you does get ill before the weekend, will you give one of us three a shout, mate, please?
I'll give you a ring, Marty, don't worry.
Yeah, no, fair play, Aaron. Thanks, pal. That'll be perfect.
Good lad, out, lads. Much appreciated.
No
See you
worries,
later.
lads. Cheers. Thanks,
Thank
Andrew.
you.
Thanks.
So that's fantastic. Yesterday. Fantastic. I don't know. I'm aware, Martin, you might have to shoot off, but is there any questions that we couldn't ask then that we could possibly talk about? Chris can talk about if you have to go before we wrap
there's
up.
a few more there. I've probably got 5 minutes. There wasn't. What else was there? Most of them were kind of comments. Tom Dixon, actually one we missed with the lads want to know, was there any chance of bringing back the pink newspaper? I agree, Tom. I think they should. Totally. I used to love that on a Saturday after the match. Just on other things, I don't know, obviously we were talking there during the chat about those that live abroad and aren't going to Wembley, whatever else. Just if anybody wants to know, you can actually order the Carabao Cup final programme online. I think it's at iMedia. I'll put something up on my Twitter later on. I ordered mine yesterday. The programme's a tenner and it's £2.60 for shipping all over the world. So you can go on, order online, 12 quid, and it gets posted out from Friday, I think it is. So they should get posted out. So if you do want a programme but you can't get to Wembley, you can order them online. I'll pick it out and I'll put it on my Twitter either later tonight or tomorrow morning. Was there any other questions? Not many more. A couple of them the one from Tom was about to the lads was just about, obviously, if we make top four, who will we go out and buy in the summer? The other one wasn't really a question, but a good comment about trips lifting the cup. But I'm presuming, unless otherwise, would it not be Lascelles would lift the cup as club captain?
I think it'll be Lascelles and Kabir together.
Probably will be both, I would imagine.
Yeah.
That you would see. So yeah. Hang on, a couple more comments at the bottom. No, nothing. There's no real questions as such. So whatever else we want to kind of finish and close out on, lads. Michael Palmer says, amazing how fast we were able to print the print in those days. Mustn't have been simple to get paper out on a Saturday evening. So yeah, good point.
It was, yeah. Chris, Mark, was anything you wanted to bring up yourselves? If there wasn't anything in the chat that possibly we didn't discuss, or
let me just have a look. See, is there anything?
The only thing I'd like to say, I liked what PDK wrote earlier on in the show when he just said a fan is a fan.
Absolutely.
And I think that's absolutely right. You know, if we all could, all circumstances, you know, taken into account, I'm sure that, you know, Wembley Stadium would have like 250,000 people in there. But it is what it is. But yeah, ultimately, no matter what happens, you know, every fan is a fan and they're entitled to their opinion and they're entitled to, you know, support the club and love the club as much as the next person. I, for one, am one of those people, you know, like when you see people acting a bit entitled, I do find it frustrating. But equally, you know, I understand why people feel that loyalty should be rewarded and people feel that, you know, they have more of a right than someone else, but it doesn't make you a better fan.
No, everyone's the same. You know, before I moved to Dublin in '99, I had season ticket for best parts of 15 years. You know, I gave that up when I moved here for work and everything else. You know, I try and get home as much. But, you know, anyone that see me sitting around here in the bar, the shirts are up, the scarves are up. I've gone out this week. You lads seen on Twitter, I've gone and bought the 1990 barcode jersey. I'll be wearing that in my local pub on Sunday. I'm going to the pub with my mate who lives over here. He's a Mackham. So, you know, the place will be full of Manx. You know, I'll enjoy myself either way. I'll be full of Guinness, win, lose or draw. I'll either get my head kicked in or we'll win, and I'll get my head kicked in. So I'm gonna make it a good one anyway. So a couple more questions. A couple of score updates. Latest is Sunderland 0, Rotherham 2. The Real Madrid Liverpool game is still 2-2. What have we got? So yeah, the one there from Sefton Bag. Are we doing a cup final special?
I don't know. We haven't really.
We haven't really. Yeah, we've not really got that far. We may. Depending on what happens, we may do a reaction. That may be depending on alcohol and how far in the week we get. So don't know yet, mate. But we will. We will put something out there if we. I was about to say,
if you're not already, like and subscribe, and any notifications for any shows that we do, you will get a notification. So. You know, as I said, it's free of charge. Like and subscribe if you've enjoyed the show or any of the content we've done over the last few days. And we've got some good content out this week as well. Just like and subscribe. You know, as I said, it's free of charge. But you can also, because we know some fantastic, generously Geordies out there who like to be part of our members draws, which we have got one coming up on Friday. Is that right, Chris?
We have, mate. Yeah. So the members draw that we've promised is coming up on Friday, and we are going to show live who's won the prize for February.
Yeah. So obviously, if you want to do that, click on the button. Obviously, you have to do it on your laptop. You can't do it on your mobile device. It's next to the like and subscribe button. Just click join. It's $1.99 a month. Obviously, everything that goes back into all the hard work we put in. We're 5 part-time YouTubers. With dads who've got full-time jobs elsewhere. Just basically just because we love to talk about the club that we all love, and why the reason why you're actually watching this. So obviously there's no obligation to do that, but obviously if you do feel like you're generous to do that, it's always appreciated. One thing I wanted to say that just because obviously you brought it up before.
Michael says, "Can we please rig it so he can win?" No. Now there was one more question, so I don't know, Richie. Do you want to quickly do sponsors, and then we'll finish on the final question? I
was just going to say, because obviously you mentioned before about the tickets for the Carabao Cup and obviously the allocation, how hard it's been to get. Just something I want to twist background was, if we get the FA Cup final, I'd love to see how it's going to be then, because you actually get a less allocation. And one of the reasons why you get a less allocation, a lot of people might not know this, every single club that is entered into the FA Cup get 2 tickets for the final FA Cup final.
It's ridiculous.
So Chester Street Town, who are down the road from me, they're entering every year.
It should be like that. Excuse me.
No. So basically, what they'll do is they'll give it to one of the committee members of the fans.
So does that mean we can have a bit of crack with Concert because we sponsor them? No.
I think we'll be down the list if we get them for good tickets if there's an FA Cup final over it.
We need to pull a few strokes, otherwise we're pulling the sponsorship.
Go on, Mike.
Well, what do you want? Do you want to quickly do sponsors and then we'll finish up and close out on this final question, or do you want to do question now?
Do the question, then we'll write out the sponsors, mate.
Okay.
Oh, goal!
Oh, go on,
Real Madrid 3, Liverpool 2.
Oh, nice. Okay,
it's all gone wrong.
Good. Hang on, I had the question somewhere. I've lost it. Sorry, Mark. Okay, here we go then. We'll start at the top. So, question from Mark Todd. Really good question. Probably the best one of the night, to be fair. Who would you guys like to score the winning goal and why?
Ooh, that's a lovely question.
Great question, Mark. That is the best question of the night. Richie?
I think I would like Sven Botman to score the winner.
Oh, I nearly said Sven Botman.
Yeah.
The reason being was because obviously he was part of the Ajax system, and obviously Ten Hag from Ajax, and Ten Hag, I believe, sold Botman, and I just think it was the perfect way to get back at him.
There you go. Okay, Chris.
Yeah, I was thinking Botman myself, and we all know how much we love Botman, and him getting his first goal in a final. But it was a straight shootout between Maxi and Bruno. But I just think because that Bruno song would just be sang all night, it'd have to be Bruno. I just love Bruno to score the winner. That we've got Bruno in the middle will just be it'll just be singing forever. So yeah, I'd say Bruno. Yeah, they are. Lisa Bowles on it. She knows to score.
Lisa knows to score. Okay, look, both good choices. Look, at the end of the day, you want anyone to get it, but considering the sheer amount of stick I've given him, and if he starts and he has an opportunity to become an absolute fucking hero forever, I would love to see ASM score the winner in a black and white shirt at Wembley to lift the first trophy in 50 odd years. So I'm going with ASM, and
what about a draw at full time, a draw at extra time, penalties? Karius scores the winner, 11.
Yeah, I thought that exactly before you said. Yeah. Or we get down. The other one for me would be nice. Would be Sean Longstaff. And again, I sometimes call him out, sometimes when he's not on his best. But I think during the cup and that, he's been exceptional in the last few games. And I think Saturday's game, I think he was a little bit isolated and stuff. So don't think it was necessarily on him, that midfield. But yeah, if it's not ASM, then I'd love to see Longstaff score that winner as a Geordie and
do you know what?
Bring the cup home.
Do you know what though? Who are we kidding? Like I thought Trippier captain, it'd be great, everyone love it. Then I'm thinking Shaw with this, and I'm like, actually, I'd just love anyone to score. So if anyone's got, I mean, even if Isak scored, it'd be fantastic, wouldn't it? It'd really talk about a big confidence boost. Or if Wilson come back in, and then Eddie Howe proved him right, and Wilson scored. Anthony Gordon, oh no, not Anthony Gordon. Anyone scored, it'd just be brilliant, wouldn't it?
That's what I say. It'd be good if anyone scored. Bear in mind, we haven't scored in a UK English final since 1955.
Yeah, exactly. Listen, if it goes to penalties the way ours are, we could get all the way down before Mad Dog takes one, and he could be the winner. Right, that's it, Richie. Do you want to do?
That's what I will do, mate. Just a fantastic shout out to our sponsors. Obviously, we've got Russ at the Radiator Shed. We'll put. Oh, God, it must be this one.
Hang on, I'll get rid of the banner. That's me.
It's all right. After that, we have to put, obviously, Chris in jail, his turn tonight. Obviously, go and visit theradiatorshed.com, or you can visit the showroom in Team Valley. We've also got a fantastic range of radiators down there. Also, some fantastic cast iron designs as well, but also some fantastic new colours that have been added to the range as well. Also to the install works as well. And also to our new partner as well, and I'll find the thing is H2O will also give Chris a wash because his shower's been a bit naff this weekend at the hotel. If you have some fantastic bathroom designs, I know Pete was mentioning the other day that
won't let mine and his missus see these. Yeah, exactly.
I know.
I can.
Oh, mate.
I think Pete's just actually looking at the fact that he's just done out the kitchen, so he might have saved himself a few pennies for a little bit. But yeah, if you're looking for a fantastic, new bathroom there, get yourself down to H2O. Team Valley as well, and there's a fantastic range. Then I'm sure Russ and his business partner will set you up there anyway. Yep. But lads, fantastic. Thank you very much for joining us, and thank you everyone who would join us on a Tuesday night. Much appreciated. I know there's a lot of football on the time, so, it will be a little less viewers than normal, so I understand people wouldn't watch the Champions League and stuff, but you can catch us on Catch Back, and if you do watch us back, it's always much appreciated as well. And later on this week, we have a couple of shows potentially in the pipeline, but one that we definitely do have is Away Days on Friday, I believe it is. We're joined by Side TV to preview the cup final itself on Friday. If you want any catch up, we did have Johnny on the show last night for Newcastle Fans TV. There's an interesting little video that was released there where he was Nostradamus regards to takeover. We have got it online. I'm going to have a look if you haven't seen it already. It is quite funny, but if not, you've got some time spare, get yourself over and watch that. And also we've got the review shows that we did at the weekend as well, and on there. But lads, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks for everybody watching.
And lads, I'll see whoever's on the show this later in the week. I'll see you then. And everyone else, hope you have a fantastic night, and we look forward to seeing you at the end of the week. And as Stars like to say, how do you like that?
Drink it.